As the auto industry continues its forward march into full electrification, it looks like the Jeep brand is finally ready to get in on the fun. I'm here at a studio in New York City, where this right here is the first ever 2025 Jeep Wagoneer S. Let's take a first look. So we've known about the Wagoneer S for quite some time. Jeep has been promising a fully electric vehicle. In fact, the company is preparing to basically account for about 50% of their sales to be fully electric by the year 2030. And while we've already seen vehicles like the Jeep Recon, which also should be launching later this year, the Wagoneer S has been an interesting addition because at first Jeep didn't have a name for this car, but now they've confirmed that the name will be the Wagoneer S when it goes on sale this fall. This particular one that I'm showing you here is the launch edition. It's the first one that's going to come out first. And this exterior color is a new color for Jeep. It's called Fathom Blue. And I have to say, there are some blue studio lights here, so it's kind of making it look even more blue. But I have to also look at the styling of this vehicle because when I first saw the Wagoneer S, I got very much Range Rover vibes from this vehicle, and seeing the production version, I'm getting the same vibes. First of all, you can see there's a new interpretation of the Jeep 7-slot grille. You can see the grille itself is also illuminated. Of course, you're going to get these full LED headlights, which have a very slim design to it. I think it looks very futuristic, but also still instantly recognizable as a Jeep. You can see down here in the lower fascia, there's still some actual grille openings, some well-integrated parking sensors. You can see this lower portion of the front bumper kind of gives off a more sportier vibe to it, although it's a Jeep. So Jeep says that you're going to have a unique four-wheel drive system that gives you some actual off-road capability. But overall, I think this car definitely has more of like a futuristic, modern city vibe as opposed to the traditional boxy Jeep designs. Now, it's built off of the new Stella Large platform, which is Stellantis' new fully dedicated EV architecture. In fact, this platform also underpins vehicles like the new upcoming Dodge Challenger, which is fully electric, the upcoming Ram that's also fully electric, of course. And it's also going to accommodate different battery sizes. However, Jeep says that this model here is going to launch with a 100.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and we'll talk about that when we go into the charge port door a little bit more. Now, looking at the side profile of this vehicle, you can see the Wagoneer S, even though it has the Wagoneer name, this is actually about the same size as a Grand Cherokee. So kind of think of this car as like a fully electric version of the Grand Cherokee. You have an overall length of around 192.5 inches long with a 113-inch long wheelbase. So remember, this vehicle is supposed to compete with something like the Chevrolet Blazer EV or the Ford Mustang Mach-E, although Jeep technically also talks about this being a Tesla Model Y competitor. Although, as you can see, this is a little bit larger versus something like the Tesla. You can see the launch edition that I'm showing you here has these really nicely finished black 20-inch wheels on a Pirelli 235 by 50 R20 Pirelli Scorpio all-season tire. So again, not really a trail-rated tire because while this is a Jeep, it's going to be able to do some off-roading. It's not going to be a trail-rated Jeep. And in terms of the suspension, it's all independent. Jeep says the ground clearance will vary from this car, although I think I saw the spec at around 7 inches, which isn't a lot. But again, this is going to also be the most aerodynamic Jeep ever because Jeep says that they focused hard on aerodynamics, which is an important key factor for EVs. They're saying the coefficient of drag for this vehicle is around 0.29, so it's the most aerodynamic Jeep ever. And you can certainly see that in the exterior design with the silhouette. You can see you've got these black painted mirrors. It's got the Wagoneer badge here. You can see the door handles. These are new for Jeep. You can see they're actually kind of not the traditional handles they pull out. There's a little pressure pad at the back underneath here that allows it to open up. This is better for aerodynamics. I also really appreciate the black trim around the vehicle, the black roof. You can see that panoramic sunroof that opens is also standard. That's a really nice feature, and it's also nice that it actually opens up. Most EVs in this class typically don't have a sunroof that actually opens up to vent air. You can see, looking at this D-pillar area here, there's a little badge that says Wagoneer S. Really gives me, again, Range Rover Evoque or Range Rover Sport vibes. So I think the Jeep team did a fantastic job in terms of the exterior styling. You can see, looking at the rear, we have that traditional full-length LED light bar, which a lot of brands are also doing. You can see there's also a spoiler back here, which is pretty pronounced. There's actually 2 spoilers. I suspect this has to do with aerodynamics. And if you're looking here also, there's no rear window wiper. I suspect that's because of the shape of the spoiler and the way the roof tiers drop. It allows for air to kind of come down and kind of create an effect where you don't need an actual spoiler. Obviously, no visible exhaust. And then there's also a 4xe badge here, which 4xe used to mean plug-in hybrid for Jeep. But as you can see, this is a fully electric vehicle, which you're going to find the charge port door over here on the driver's side rear fender. Now, when you open this up, you can see it has the standard J1772 connector with the CCS combo. And Jeep didn't mention how much this car will accept in terms of a maximum kilowatt acceptance on a level 3, but the company did say you can go from about 20% to about 80% in about 23 minutes, which is actually pretty quick. Now, most competitors, most other brands measure it from 10 to 80%. I suspect this is probably around 30 minutes, but Jeep says the Stella large platform can easily do 400-watt architecture or an 800-volt architecture. I'm sorry. So it's going to be relatively competitive in terms of charging. And Jeep says with its 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack, you're going to do around 300 or over 300 miles of range. So that's again a really class competitive feature. Now in terms of the cargo area, let's go ahead and open up the power lift gate. Now, Jeep actually already had some numbers for us. You can see, because this is Grand Cherokee size, you're gonna find a ton of interior space. So there's around 31 cubic feet of total storage space with the seats up. There's no third row, obviously. If you look underneath the floor here, you can see there is a little bit of underfloor storage where you can also find the charger, the mobile charger, where if you want to connect this vehicle to a level 1. If you want to fold down the second row seats, Jeep says it expands the cargo to a little over 60 cubic feet. So 60 cubic feet obviously is not quite as much as a Grand Cherokee, but remember, this is built off of a dedicated EV architecture, so it's going to have a little bit less interior space, even though we have a similar footprint to the Grand Cherokee. So moving on to the interior of the new Wagoneer S, you can see I've actually switched over to this silver one because it has a new interior color called Radar Red. First of all, that chime that you're hearing is a new chime that I haven't heard from any other Jeep, and it's very obnoxious. So I'll be curious to know if it actually makes it to production. I have to remind you guys, these are very early pre-production prototype versions. So moving back to the interior, this is called Radar Red, and this is again a first edition trim. So this basically comes fully loaded. And I have to say, the seats in this car, they look like every other seats that I've seen in other Jeeps, but the leather that they use feels a lot more plush. These seats are heated, ventilated, and massaging. So again, if you're going to be spending this kind of money for the first edition or launch edition, you expect a lot of premium touches. The seats, they adjust, I believe, in like 14 different ways. And I have to say, they feel pretty comfortable and supportive. I also love the fact that the headrest, you can see, adjusts forward and it goes up as well. That's manual, but the leather quality just feels really hand, which I appreciate. Now looking at the door panels, you can see, again, this is the highest trim version, so you have this really nice actual real stitching along the upper door panel with the contrast red stitching, real aluminum trim. You can see the ambient lighting in this car is also very intricate. Jeep says that you can adjust the ambient lighting in 64 different colors. So at night, I'll have to wait until I get one of these for a week to show you guys what that looks like. You can see the Radar Red comes through onto the lower portion of the door panel. You have the typical Stellantis window switches where they're one touch for all four. And then to exit the vehicle, because of that digital latch system, you can see there's a button here that I basically have to push and push for a second. You can see that's what opens the door. Again, that chime is kind of super annoying. So looking at the rest of the dash, you can see you have this nice leather from the door panels. It's carried over up here with the contrast bronze stitching. You have traditional air vents, which I appreciate. And then looking at the screen real estate. So Jeep says there's a total of 45 inches of total screen real estate. Now that's, of course, if you add up the 4 screens. So there's technically there's 5. So there's a 12.3 inch digital instrument cluster here, which is also customizable. I also like the steering wheel. It's a 2-spoke design with a flat bottom and a flat top. You can see it has actual buttons on the wheel. It also includes a power tilt telescoping function with the wheel. It also has Wagoneer here as opposed to the Jeep badge, because again, Wagoneer, Jeep is trying to kind of spin off as its own premium brand. And then over here in the center stack, you can see this is their latest Uconnect 5 touchscreen infotainment system, which includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is 12.3 inches. There's also a 10.25 inch display on the passenger side, which I can't get to turn on right now. And then there's also another 10.25 inch screen down here where you can control your climate function. You can also activate the driver and front passenger massage. This is very similar, of course, to the big Wagoneer. But again, when you add up these 4 screens here, there's a total of 45 inches of total screen real estate. Plus you also get a heads-up display, a digital camera review mirror, and down here in the center console area, you can see there's this nice leather stitching that goes across. It's a wide center console, which does allow you to kind of create or have some nice storage. So there's this screen actually should slide up, but again, pre-production prototype, I'm not going to try to make the screen move up. You can see there's kind of like this textured, almost looks like plastic, but it tries to look like aluminum. It's a really nice finish because I appreciate how it's not the shiny piano black plastic like here. You can see your transmission selectors here. This is your start stop button. And then you can see your drive mode selector. There's a total of 5 different drive modes: sport, auto, eco, snow, and sand. It's part of their terrain response full-time 4-wheel drive system. And then you can see the center console has a nice padded area here. If I open this up, you can see your wireless phone charging pad is here. And then you can see it's a pretty deep storage. Here's the key fob for the vehicle. It's technically the same fob that we've seen from other Jeep and Stellantis products. It actually doesn't say Wagoneer on the back. I imagine it should. It looks like it's missing a piece. Again, early pre-production prototype. You have your usual buttons here for unlock, lock, remote start, open up the power liftgate, and panic function. I believe Jeep also offers a phone as a key function as well. So kind of keep that in mind if you're an owner. A lot of the tech in this car is pretty much what you've seen before in a Wagoneer or Grand Wagoneer, but again, this is a vehicle that's smaller in stature, more like a Grand Cherokee. Now above me you can see, I also love the fact that they use like an ultra suede on the headliner and on the actual pillars here. That's something you're not gonna find from its competitors. And you can also see here the sunroof opens up to vent air, which is very nice. That's not something you're gonna find in most of the rivals. You can see it opens up over just the front seats, but you can see it actually opens up fairly large. So this is a nice feature that I think a lot of people are gonna really appreciate. So I love the fact that Jeep decided to go with this, and also keep in mind that panoramic sunroof is going to be standard on all the launch editions of the Wagoneer S. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area and see what that space is like. Now getting back here, you can see it has the same digital latch door, and ignore some of the wires and boxes back here. This is again showing a car that's here that's hooked up to lights in the studio environment. You can see the radar red continues back here, and Jeep also says that this only comes obviously as a 2-row. You can obviously fold down the seats to create a flat load floor. I actually appreciate how flat it is. This is around 60 cubic feet of space when the seats are completely fold flat. You can see the seats also offer a slight recline function, which is nice. These don't actually slide forward or back, but getting back here you can see in terms of the legroom space, Jeep says there's around 38 inches of legroom, which is pretty comparable to a Grand Cherokee. You can see this is pretty much where I'd have the seat to drive. The floor here, surprisingly, is not completely flat. There's a slight hump here, and for a vehicle that's built off of a dedicated EV architecture, it's strange to see that there's a hump there. You can see there's a little bit of storage pockets into the front seat backs. You have rear seat air vents. You have heated and ventilated seats back here, along with an actual household power outlet, 2 USB-C charging ports, which is again something that most people are going to expect. And then looking at the door panels here, you can see that leather carries over with the actual stitching, the beautiful ambient lighting, the aluminum trim. You still have nice window control switches. And then if you guys are an audiophile, the launch editions will come standard with their Macintosh audio system. Now we've sampled that audio system before in other Jeep products. It offers around 19 speakers, 1200 watts of power. I'll have to sample it at a later date when I actually drive this vehicle. But again, it's nice to see the Jeep is kind of including everything as standard. You can see, fold this down, there's an armrest with 2 cup holders. And then above me, you can see pretty decent amount of headroom space. Again, the sunroof does take up some room, but I also appreciate that it comes into the backseat area here to let in more light. And I have to say, this particular one that I'm showing you, the silver exterior with the radar red interior, is a really great color combination. Now under the hood of the new Wagoneer S, you can see, like so many other EVs, I'm really happy to see that Jeep actually included a frunk. In fact, the company says you have around 3 cubic feet of storage space under here, which is relatively usable. You can see it actually has like an area where it's sealed off, so you could put things in here, wet items, for example, although it's not quite as big as the frunk that you're gonna find in something like the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Now, since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs, because right now Jeep was only ready to talk about the launch edition version, which essentially is the most powerful version. Jeep says you have twin electric motors as standard. It'll deliver up to 600 horsepower, 617 pound-feet of torque. So while this isn't the most powerful production Jeep ever, that still belongs to the Trackhawk, it still will be able to allow this SUV to sprint to 60 in 3.4 seconds, which is actually around 0.1 seconds faster versus the Grand Cherokee Trackhawk, and it's also a smidge faster versus the current Tesla Model Y Performance. So you can see clearly where Jeep kind of had their crosshairs locked on, because they're wanting this vehicle to, of course, have that performance that you expect. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, and like I said earlier, 100.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack with up to over 300 miles of range. Now they didn't specify what the range is going to be exactly for this model here, and then Jeep also wasn't ready to talk about any other variants of the Wagoneer S. I expect the company to also do a detuned version that doesn't have quite as much power, because again, 600 horsepower is great, but most people probably won't find the need to do 600 horsepower. Now this vehicle also has a top speed of around 124 miles an hour, and I suspect this vehicle should be able to tow. They didn't have actual towing figures as of this filming. I would estimate this car is probably around 3,500 pounds. They did, however, talk about the curb weight, and obviously when you have a dedicated EV architecture, it does help to save weight, but at the same time you have a 100 kilowatt-hour battery pack, so as this car sits, it weighs in at just under 5,700 pounds. So even though Jeep was a little late to the electric SUV party, I have to say, with the new Wagoneer S, the company is definitely taking this segment by storm. And as you guys know, the segment continues to get more and more crowded. I mean, obviously there's things like the Mustang Mach-E, the Model Y, there's the ID4, the Ioniq 5, Kia EV6. The Wagoneer S is going to be larger than all of those vehicles. This is really more along the lines of the Chevrolet Blazer EV, which I actually think the SS model is going to be a really great comparison. Then the Wagoneer S is an interesting vehicle, because I expected Jeep to go more of an off-road oriented direction, but I suspect that's probably what they're going to save the Recon to be for. This is going to be more like the American electric Range Rover, and I think that the design team nailed the exterior styling of this car because I think it's absolutely stunning in person, especially in this Fathom Blue with the first edition and all the additional goodies it gets. Now, if you're looking to get your hands on this vehicle, Jeep says that they will be in showrooms in the fall of this year, so you're gonna have to wait a few more months. And they already announced pricing, and it's a nice surprise because when they first talked about this car, we expected it to be in the $80,000 to $100,000 range. However, Jeep is saying, including Destination, the first edition with all the tech that it comes with, starts at $71,995. So just under 72 grand. That includes the Destination charge, which also sneaks it right in under the $80,000 price cap. And because this car is built in their factory in Mexico, it should qualify for that $7,500 federal tax credit. So if you can get one of these cars for in the mid $60,000 range, it's obviously going to be more expensive than those other competitors that I mentioned, but this is a Jeep. It's got a more premium vibe, very Range Rover vibe. It's also a bigger car with more interior space. So I think that's for some people that might be worth the extra charge, especially when you also consider the fact that this car has 600 horsepower and can sprint to 60 in 3.4 seconds. So I'm really looking forward to getting behind the wheel of this vehicle sometime late this summer. Well, with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my very detailed overview on the 2025 Jeep Wagoneer S. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.